guys, I'm Leya Nicole. If you're new, welcome. So today I want to provide an update on the case regarding the deaths of Antonio and Dawn Armstrong and the trial surrounding AJ's verdict.
Stay woke. Baby's creeping. Don't you close your eyes.
I'll be talking about this long trial centered around AJ Armstrong. The Armstrong household was known as a highly esteemed all-American family within their community. Antonio Armstrong was born and raised in Houston, Texas, and he pursued his college education by receiving a full scholarship to attend Texas A&M, to play football, and was recruited by the NFL. As an exceptional football player, he showcased his talents for the San Francisco 49ers and several other teams, mainly excelling in his defensive role. Dawn and Antonio were blessed with two children of their own, namely Antonio Jr., known as AJ Armstrong, and Kaya Armstrong. However, we will soon discover underlying family issues that sadly turned into a tragic event. They were both shot while they were sleeping. Antonio was shot in the head and had a faint pulse. Dawn was shot 2 times in the head. She was pronounced dead at the scene. 16-year-old at the time, AJ Armstrong, heard the gunfire and called 911 immediately. Responders rushed out to the house, and when police arrived, the security system was still intact. No one had entered or left the house for hours, leaving this case surrounded by mystery. So that left investigators to believe that 16-year-old AJ Armstrong was responsible. He was taken into custody and was questioned by the Houston Police Department the following morning.
Get along with your mom, get along with dad, no problems, no issues.
Yeah, like really close. And then me and my mom, me, my brother, and my sister, like, had our, like, little issues with my mom, but it was never anything, like, serious, like.
You're explaining away around that you shot through the floor 2 or 3 weeks ago when we've got fresh sheetrock on the ground and we've got a round still laying on the ground. I mean, your parents use that room constantly. They're gonna notice. If your dad's gonna notice and he's gonna burn on the carpet, he's gonna notice.
That's why I'm saying it doesn't make sense, because it wasn't in this past. I'm pretty sure it wasn't in the past week. If it wasn't this week, then it was last week.
Detectives quickly realized that AJ was possibly trying to set the house on fire, but really the second floor. They also didn't ignore the pillows and blankets in AJ's room. They felt like AJ was practicing or doing a test run before taking his parents out. Now, AJ was arrested and charged for 2 counts of capital murder, but was later released and free on a $200,000 bond. Detectives strongly believe that they had a case against AJ based off the evidence they found, but they didn't realize that this was going to be a very long try battle. AJ's grandparents on both sides, Dawn's parents and Antonio's parents, firmly believed that AJ was innocent. They stood firm on the fact that he would never try to kill his parents, so they were going to back up AJ to the very end. Now let's fast forward to 2019, and AJ is now 19 years old. Ask AJ what was his relationship with his parents, and I'll insert some of the audio footage here.
Get along with your mom, get along with dad, no problems, no issues.
Yeah, like really close. And then me and my mom, me, my brother, and my sister, like, had our, like, little issues with my mom, but it was never anything, like, serious, like.
So then they asked AJ about his older brother, Josh. Now, Josh did arrive at the scene right away because AJ had called Josh to let him know that his parents were killed.
You have an older brother that doesn't live there?
No, he's not. He just moved. He was going to Blinn, and he just moved back like 3 weeks ago. He's going to the Art Institute now,
okay.
And he lives in those apartments. Like, our house is here, and when you come out and make that left on Maple Ridge, he lives in those apartment complexes right there.
Okay, so right around the corner.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Now, how is his relationship with everybody in the family?
I mean, he's really, like, me, him, and my dad are, like, a really close group. Like, we sit down and talk a lot. And then him and my mom are, like, identical people. Like, their personalities are the same, so they're close. And then me and him are just, like, have a really close brother relationship. And then my little sister, like, loves him.
After that intense interview, investigators wanted to collect some DNA evidence to see if maybe fingerprints were on the gun or anything, in the house. Come to find out, there was no fingerprints on the gun or pen that was used to write the note. Now, they did find shell casing from the gun that was in the master bedroom and in AJ's bedroom. They also saw a bullet hole in the ceiling of the master bedroom, and on the top of that bedroom was AJ's room on the 3rd floor. So they asked AJ about his dad's gun and the bullet hole in the ceiling that was actually covered up with socks on AJ's floor, like it was being hidden. Investigators really felt like AJ was a suspect after finding out this new evidence. And they knew that the bullet holes weren't weeks prior from the incident because it pierced through the master bedroom ceiling. So Dawn and Antonio would have noticed these bullet holes. Evidence came out that AJ didn't have gunpowder residue on his skin or clothing or blood splatter. So his defense team was banking hard on that piece of evidence.
And there's this amazing thing is if you fire a gun without ear protection, something happens to your ears. That wouldn't happen if you're in another room. The whole reason why we have ear protection is there's like a high pitch or a ringing that goes on in your ears. When the dispatcher asked him, do you hear any noises, what does A.J. Armstrong say?
Okay, can you hear anything else that's
And it's not even like he's talking to her. He's whispering it slowly to himself. He's saying, it's high-pitched in my ears. This one statement is a confession. There's only one reason why you would have a high pitch in your ears is because you just fired a firearm inside of a home.
The prosecution team really focused on the small details regarding AJ and this case. They brought attention to the fact that AJ shared with police hours later that he saw a man running outside of the house. But during the phone call to 911, he only shared that his parents' bedroom door was cracked open and they never leave it open.
Now he's going down the stairs and he sees someone coming, but it's more.
Wait, did you physically see somebody?
No, I saw him running. Like, I saw him running.
Now he sees someone running. You would think during a 16-minute 911 call, if he really saw someone running, he would have said, ma'am, I saw someone running in my house. Please get here. My sister's down the hallway. Wouldn't he have? Wouldn't he have said, someone's here, please? My sister is down the hallway. I see him running that way. But he doesn't do that. But to homicide investigators, if you're the only one in the house, if you're the one that committed murder, you've got to invent somebody. We all know from movies, the one-armed man, that's what this is like.
Around November 2022, the jury deadlocked, putting this case at a pause a second time. And this time, the jury was favoring that AJ was more on the innocent side than guilty. This left the prosecution team feeling irritated because with AJ's story and the evidence they had, they felt like he was being very dishonest. The state of Texas made a decision to trial AJ Armstrong for a 3rd time, and it was scheduled to be held on February 24th, 2023. The judge announced recently around June 2023 that this case will be delayed until July 31st, 2023. If AJ is found guilty, I do believe he will be facing 40 years to life in prison with no parole. This case has been dragging on for 7 long years and faced numerous delays, hearing resets, and unexpected turns. I really hope the truth comes out in a few weeks. Now, when it comes to AJ Armstrong, opinions are actually divided. Some people think he's guilty. he had a clear plan to kill his parents because they were disciplining him more, especially his mother. And while others believe he's innocent and will never do something so evil, they feel like, it's more based on the fact that he's a black man and he's, going through the fire right now. So a lot of people are back and forth. Some think he's guilty, some think he's innocent. So guys, feel free to comment below and share your thoughts, but please be respectful. The case is still ongoing, so hopefully we'll learn the truth very soon. This is when we jump into the case update. A third trial started on July 31st, 2023 and lasted over 2 weeks. AJ was found guilty on August 16th, 2023. He had been out on bonds and on a GPS monitor since 2017. New evidence was conducted on August 7th, 2023 of blood samples. So during the third trial, they called the 18th witness to the stand, Andrew Barr. He was the detective who actually bagged and inspected AJ's clothes when AJ was officially charged with capital murder in 2016. He did testify that no blood had been found during that time. Now, after 7 long years, Andrew Barr stated he was there when DNA evidence was found on a sticker that was on that same shirt that had been inspected earlier in 2016. This was considered vital new information for both prosecution and defense. The 19th witness was called that day too, Montgomery County Sheriff's Office crime scene investigator, sergeant and bloodstain pattern analyst, Celestina Rosie. She is the one that actually found the blood. During the trial, a few things were exposed. The killer left a note scribbled in large letters downstairs on a kitchen counter next to the murder weapon. Quote, "I have been watching you for a long time. Come get me." Investigators found no sign of forced entry, and they separated Antonio Jr. and his sister Keira and tested both of their hands for gunshot residue. At one point during the initial call in 2016, Antonio Jr. muttered to himself, "It's all my fault." AJ's grandmother shared with investigators, quote, "Let me tell you something. If AJ did something like this, it had to be drugs." During his initial call, he mentioned ringing in his ear, which usually happens after firing a gun if no protective ear equipment is worn or you're super close to the shots. In the weeks leading up to the murder, Antonio Jr. had failed out of school, and in text messages, Dawn accused him of smoking marijuana, drinking, and lying to them over and over. After years of evidence and witness statements, AJ has still maintained his innocence. Throughout the whole 7 years, the jury for the third trial heard more than 40 hours of testimony from 31 different witnesses and reached a verdict on its second day of deliberation. Since he was a juvenile at the time of the crime, he will be eligible for parole after 40 years after recently pleading guilty. So he won't receive parole until August 3rd, 2063. But AJ still filed an appeal to maintain his innocence after being found guilty. A motion by the defense for a fourth trial was denied in October 2023. While the jury was deliberating before Armstrong's conviction, and now AJ is currently pled guilty, another attorney representing him filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Houston, claiming that the DNA evidence was planted by the Houston Police Department. And that lawsuit is still currently pending.
A.J. Armstrong's attorneys met once again outside the HPD property room, now addressing new allegations that one of the prosecution's witnesses planted evidence in a murder case years ago.
If I had an inkling of a thought that A.J. Armstrong, my grandson, killed my son and my beautiful daughter-in-law, we wouldn't be supporting him. We would not stand by him. We know he's innocent.
Days after A.J. Armstrong was convicted for killing his parents, Don and Antonio Armstrong Sr., his grandmother, Kay Winston, defending him and standing alongside civil rights attorney Randall Callanan and other family and friends to address new allegations that have surfaced, in addition to a federal lawsuit already filed against the city of Houston that say evidence was planted to convict Armstrong.
And I want you to know we're seeking justice. We won't stop until he gets justice.
The new allegations come from Dr. Robert Collins, who made a complaint back in 2019 of DNA evidence being planted in a separate capital murder trial by Celestina Rossi, who he says is the same expert who found DNA evidence on one of Armstrong's T-shirts in his third murder trial.
And he says their expert planted evidence in another murder case.
The federal lawsuit claims evidence planting in the case and that Rossi, quote, knowingly transferred blood splatter from Antonio Armstrong Sr. to a T-shirt implicating AJ.
This is not fair. This is not the way Harris County should be doing things. This is not the way justice should be done.
The Houston Police Officers Union has seen the federal lawsuit and has responded, denying all the allegations.
My name is Randall Callanan, and I am a civil rights lawyer, and I am here today with the family and friends of Antonio Armstrong, who just a few days ago was convicted of a murder on his third trial. And I don't see one single person that has abandoned AJ and thinks he's guilty. And it's obvious why. In the second trial, it was 8-4 not guilty. 8-4. And the only difference between the second trial and the third trial was DNA evidence that was miraculously found 7 years after this tragedy. 7 years. That was the only difference. People believe in DNA. You hear it all the time. There's a million shows on YouTube and on television about DNA and how that solves crimes. People believe in it. So you got to have people telling the truth when it comes to this DNA. Now the lawyers did their best when this DNA came up. But after we filed the lawsuit, and after the verdict came down, an expert, a DNA expert who practices regularly in Harris County, including in the 178th District Court where Antonio was convicted, who has been appointed by that judge, and 10 other judges, and as well as the federal court, a very trusted DNA expert said to me, I filed a complaint about planting evidence to the Texas office which investigates problems with DNA experts. And here it is. He gave it to me. The defense did not have this. Maybe some of you have heard of Brady versus the state of Maryland. In that case, the Supreme Court said the prosecution must give over to the defense any potentially exculpatory evidence. And it's not up to the district attorney to determine what's the exculpatory evidence, because why would they? They are trying to convict. If it's potentially exculpatory, you give it over. So the criminal defense attorneys did not have this report by Dr. Robert Collins. And just let me read you who Dr. Robert Collins is. I am the complainant, Dr. Robert Collins. I have a PhD in molecular and human genetics from Baylor College of Medicine from the year 2000, and a BS in genetics from the Texas A&M University, graduated cum laude in 1904. I have 14 publications in top-tier peer-reviewed journals and have been cited over 1,000 times in scientific journals. And he says their expert planted evidence in another murder case. Is it true? I don't know. This is a very respectable person, but at the very least, This should have been given over to the defense attorneys. The only difference from trial 2, where it was 8-4 not guilty, and the guilty was the DNA evidence, and they did not get this report. I have attached, which I sent to the media, the CV, or resume of Dr. Collins. Remember, this huge report, and this is just a report. There's like a whole bunch of attachments that go this with, took hours and hours and hours. You know how much money he got paid to do this? 0. He was doing this because he felt it had to be done. Mr. Collins has a laundry list of courts that appoint him, that trust him. There's, looks like 12 listed in Harris County, Montgomery County 2 courts, Galveston County 2 courts, Fort Bend County 1 court, and the federal court right downtown Houston. That was not fair. Everybody believes in fairness. All of these people here today, the family and friends who have not given up on AJ, believe in fairness. Fairness of the courts. Is this fair?
As of 2024, AJ is still married to his high school sweetheart and the mother to his child during between his second and third trial, Kate Auber. The most recent information found shows that she has remained by his side and they're still married. She still believes that AJ is innocent.
She shares her frustrations in an exclusive interview with KPRC2's Rilwan Belogan. It's a story you'll see only on 2.
Hey, Kate Armstrong shares with me that since AJ, her husband, has been transported out of Harris County, she's been only able to communicate with him through TDCJ's text messaging app. Now, in the months since his conviction, she shares that she's been trying to explain everything to the couple's 3-year-old son.
Oh, gosh. That was the moment that I had been praying when it happened for the last 7 years.
For 7 years, Kate Armstrong stood by Antonio Armstrong Jr.'s side, walking with him each day for his 3 trials. Now, we're hearing from her. I think people know who Kate is, but few people have heard from you. Why are you talking to us now?
I am talking to you guys now because AJ's been convicted, and I think it's really important for the public to know how awful it's been. I mean, just the nitty-gritty of what this is truly like and how our justice system works and how much this affects an entire family, not just one person.
Antonio Armstrong Jr. was convicted in August of killing his parents, Don and Antonio Sr., in the 3rd trial. In the months since, Armstrong said she's been trying to answer her toddler's questions. For now, she's shielding him.
He's starting to ask more questions. Mommy, where's Daddy? Like, where's Daddy? I want to talk to him on the phone. And I just tell him, you know, baby, like, we'll be able to talk to Daddy on the phone soon, just not right now.
There are a lot of people who believe and say the verdict was just. What happened in court a few months ago is what's supposed to happen. When you hear that, what goes through your head when people said the verdict was just?
So the people who say that, which they will forever, there will be people who say that, and that is going to be something we have to deal with forever. But I just pray that those people can, you know, find the time to do their own research and look at what has truly gone on.
Prosecutors say all of the evidence gathered points to AJ Armstrong as the sole perpetrator. Meanwhile, his family is standing beside him as they are raising funds now for his appeals efforts.
It's reported that AJ is also appealing for a new hearing after a forensic analyst was fired for poorly done work regarding this case. Now, a motion to abate filed in the 14th Court of Appeals states that a lab technician who handled blood evidence during Armstrong Jr.'s 3rd trial was terminated because of the quality of her work. And now the assistant DA stated that the trial court still has jurisdiction over Armstrong's case until the clerk's record and the reported records are filed.
I'm good. I'm doing good, you know. Considering the circumstances, as good as I can be, but I'm doing well.
How have things been in the last few weeks?
It's been definitely an adjustment, you know, coming to a new facility, moving again and all that, getting, you know, comfortable as possible here, meeting new people, and finally moving to population and not being isolated like I have been pretty much this whole time. So it's just been another adjustment, but it's going well so far.
How was that, the just kind of being by yourself until you were moved in Gen Pop?
Honestly, even from juvenile days till now, I've always been in a cell for practically 23 hours a day, really 24 hours a day. So being by myself is something I've kind of become used to. It doesn't really bother me, but you know, getting a cellie for the first time and that whole experience, it was a little nerve-wracking at first because you have no idea what to expect, but God put me in a good situation, good guy, so things are going well.
Why did you want to talk to us today?
I just feel like it's important for me to finally be able to really speak, you know, for the last 7 years with us being in trial and stuff like that and fighting the case, my attorneys felt it was best for me not to really speak out. So I went with their lead, and now where we're at, you know, I felt it was time for me to be able to speak my truth.
So let's talk about that, your truth. There's been 3 trials. The first 2 are hung juries. The most recent third one, you were convicted for killing both of your parents.
Yes, sir.
The questions everyone want to know is, why did you kill your parents?
I didn't kill my parents. I would say falsely convicted, because I don't believe the conviction that took place was the result that should have happened. It should have been either another hung jury or a not guilty verdict. There's no way ever I would have in a million years imagined being here, but here I am. And, you know, it's just about taking it one day at a time. The appeal process can be a slow process, but at the end of the day, I know I'm going to walk out of here. This isn't how my story ends. This isn't how things go for me. You know, it's just continuing to keep my trust in God regardless of what comes my way. But yeah, absolutely not. It's a false conviction.
Then if it's not you, then who?
I can't give you that answer. If I knew that answer, I wouldn't be in here. If my family knew that answer, we would have given that over to the authorities as quick as possible. But it's just due to their lack of investigation and them not pursuing anything outside of me from that night, like they've said on the stand, it's put us in a situation to where we don't have anything. And we're probably going to have to live the rest of our lives not knowing what happened to my parents. And that's unfortunate, but it's the situation the Houston Police Department and the DA's office has put us in.
Talk to me about how was it for you during these last 3 trials, just sitting and listening to everything?
I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It's horrible to have to sit there and hear the things that I had to listen to be able to have really me and my parents' relationship dissected and broken down in a way that the DA felt it was, when in reality it wasn't like that. Sure, my parents got on me, everyone read the text messages, everyone saw what was being said, but at the end of the day, my parents loved me and I loved them more than anything. That was the relationship they had. They were strict on me. They knew the potential that I had. They knew where I could go in my life, and that's how they were, but it was never anything more than that. So having to sit there and especially listen to the DA, you know, try and say they're speaking for my parents or they're doing what my parents would have wanted, and just things like that, I just felt was really out of place and just disrespectful to my grandparents in general, because those were their kids and they're sitting in court, and we all know if either one of my parents would have made it or if both of my parents would have made it, this would have never been a situation we would have been in. They would have made it very clear that they didn't believe in what the DA was trying to do, and what they were trying to say about our relationship just wasn't true.
You mentioned the part when the prosecutor said that they were speaking through your mom specifically. How did that make you feel?
Very frustrated, because it's just, like I said, it was really disrespectful. My grandparents are sitting right there, and to say that you're speaking for their daughter and their daughter-in-law when you don't know, you never knew their daughter or daughter-in-law, You're just reading text messages and assuming, hey, this fits our narrative, so let's say Dawn felt this way, when in actuality, Dawn didn't feel that way. My mom was hard on me, she was hard on my sister, she was hard on my brother, she was hard on everyone. That's just how my mom was. But she loved even bigger, and that never changed just because I was doing things I shouldn't have. So just to have that narrative push that my mom felt that way about me or anything like that, it was hard.
Talk to us about your relationship with your parents.
I mean, I felt like I had a great relationship with my parents. Despite, I was a 16-year-old kid. I snuck out to be with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I was smoking weed. I was getting bad grades. Like, I wasn't doing well in school my sophomore year, but at the end of the day, it was still a normal relationship. I was with my dad all the time, going to the gym, working out 5 days a week. We still laughed, we still joked, we did things, we had family events, like everything was normal. I just made some goofy kid mistakes at that age, and it was taken and blown into something that it really wasn't. And it's hard to look back because after going through those 3 trials and hearing all the things that they've said, it's kind of just caused my mind to almost kind of forget some of the good things because it's been pushed on me nothing but negative. And it sucks. It really does. But at the end of the day, I know how my parents felt about me, and I know how I felt about them, and that's what I just choose to hold on to regardless. With the way things went with my parents passing, it was able to be blown into something big that, oh my gosh, he was test firing and that's what he was doing and that was his whole plan. When in reality, it was just a 16-year-old kid playing around with a gun. We hear those stories a lot nowadays, and a lot of them have unfortunate outcomes, but for me, it was just me being a kid. I didn't really think anything into it, just playing with a gun. So,
who was the friend that you were there with?
I'm not going to tell you that, Rowan.
But do you think that friend could help you? Say, yes, I was there with them at that day. We did this not days before, but weeks beforehand.
I don't think it would have helped, only because they had their mind made up about what they felt about me, So I don't know if disclosing that information would have been beneficial to me or not. It could have been, it could not, but I don't really know, honestly.
Do you want that person to come forward and say, hey, I was with him that day?
No, not really. Just because I don't feel it's necessary to bring someone else into this, bring that person into this when it's already at this magnitude, this late in the case and things like that. So, that's really why I never spoke on who the friend was at that time, because it just wasn't, I didn't think it would be beneficial or to want to bring them into it either, because obviously with how things are and how big this case has become, it wasn't necessary to bring someone else into it that was really just an innocent bystander at the time.
But you're still saying someone else was there with you?
Oh yeah, that was never a lie. The things that were lies were very clear throughout the statement that they felt was a lie, but that was never a lie.
What were those things that you think were clearly lies?
About how I hadn't touched the gun. That was clearly at one point I said that I hadn't touched the gun in forever. And that goes back to my whole point of, at first I felt the interview was going one way, and then at that point when I realized, oh snap, they are really trying to accuse me of this, the nerves hit and I just I lied for no reason, and I hate that I did that because it put me in a situation of, look, we have this pattern of him continuing to lie, but I don't feel that, that's the thing that I hate that I just wasn't forthcoming about, because it wasn't that big of a deal, but I went about it the wrong way.
There was another incident that prosecutors kind of leaned on. This was the fire set in front of the door. Mm-hmm. What happened there?
The gasoline story, I don't really understand how there was gasoline on the carpet. That has always been something that was really confusing and a little suspect to our family, me, my family, and my lawyers, just about how gasoline was there, because there's no gasoline in the house. So are they trying to say that I took an alcohol bottle to a gas station and filled it up or something? I don't understand how that even came to be. But again, playing with matches, like I said, and on the pictures, I believe if you zoom in, there's actual match on the ground that's there. So that one was, again, just like the story that I told them. It's not something that I made up. It's not something that I lied about. It's the truth. I was playing with matches, being a goofy kid, and started a fire. And it was put out. My parents dealt with me, obviously, and we moved on from it. I believe that the gunshot and the fire were both blown out of proportion solely because of what happened. And then it fits their narrative to be able to say, hey, look, he test fired. Hey, look, he tried to burn the house down, and then he ended up killing his parents. It just fit their narrative, so that's why it was so important to them to be able to push that out. And it sucks because there's things that didn't fit their narrative that they never really disclosed or shared or put out there. So it's like, it's not really a fair shake that's given, So I don't know why that's the way it is, but I've come to find out in this judicial system that's kind of how things work.
What would you say were some of those things that didn't fit the prosecutor's narrative?
I would say the first thing that we always brought up was why did they never check the surveillance footage from the business right across, literally a house over? There's businesses, when you come out and you make that left, there's businesses all down that street. There's businesses on the back street. If they were so confident and knew for certain that it was me, they could have easily just checked that security footage, and then boom, it would have either proved our case, which we know it would have proved our case, or it would have proved their case. But they never cared to look because they felt it wasn't pertinent to the investigation, as they said many times throughout trial. I think another thing is which I believe it came out in the first trial, was the copycat note that was left. How is a note that's not even disclosed to the public that is left at the crime scene, how does a copycat note be left on a vehicle of someone who's close to the family at the time? How does that happen? How does the person who left that note leave a copycat note that's almost identical to the note that was left at the scene? Like, how does that happen? And I'm in jail at the time, so it obviously isn't me. So how does that note left? That didn't really make any sense, and I didn't understand why that wasn't allowed in. Obviously, the prosecutors fought to keep that out. Again, they continued to say that I never mentioned the masked man. That was completely made up. I didn't mention that until, I believe they said I didn't mention it until the statement. Well, I told Officer Reed, as soon as I came out, he heard me say that there was a masked man in the house. But then after meeting with prosecutors, all of a sudden he doesn't remember, or he thinks someone else told him that. So it's just like, how is at one moment you hear it, you report that you hear it, and then when it's time to testify to it, I don't really remember saying that anymore. It's like, how is that? It's not really giving me a fair shake and telling the truth, because that was something they really hit at during the trial, that, hey, he didn't mention this masked man until his statement. So that's another thing that was kind of frustrating. And then, there's a few things that the death threats, that was never brought into any trial. Why was it not allowed to be heard that my father was receiving death threats? Why is that something that had to be kept out? The DA felt it was irrelevant, but to us it was very relevant. My father was receiving death threat. That was known information that was given to the police and the DA's office. And when they got that information, instead of investigating it, they were sending messages back and forth to each other about, hey, should we put it under a different case number? Should we put it somewhere else? Well, I believe one prosecutor said that it's burning a hole in my pocket since I've received this information. Why are you trying to put it under a different case number? Why are you trying to do something different than investigating? Why wasn't it investigated? Because it didn't fit the narrative that they felt 11 minutes in, like the officer testified to. They made that decision and nothing was going to change their mind, no matter what they had. So the fact that my father was receiving death threats made no difference to them. They just brushed it to the side, like, oh, okay.
At the time, were you aware your dad was getting threats?
I wasn't aware at the time, but when that information was disclosed and, we dug into it, it became aware that, wow, okay, this was happening and they're not going to do anything about it. So it, again, sucks because it's not fair to us. Like, how does 2 juries not hear that? I mean, how do 3 juries not hear that my father was receiving death threats? That's something that should be disclosed. That's something that should have been investigated, because if that investigation happens, who knows what information comes out that would have been beneficial to our case that we could have presented before the jury, but there was never any investigation into it. And they didn't tell us about it till quite a while later. I would say months, but it was quite a while later.
Were you aware of any of the other things that came out during trial about your parents, their finances, or some of the relationships they had with some folks?
When you say relationship they had with some folks, what do you mean by that?
There's the allegation that your dad was involved in something.
I heard those things for the first matters. I don't need to be told that I didn't kill my parents, because I know I didn't. My family knows I didn't, and they support me, and that's all that matters to me. I have the best wife in the world, the best in-laws, the fact that, at 15, 16 years old, I'm hit with the case that I'm hit with, and they didn't even blink an eye. They've supported me every day. They've been at every hearing, been at every trial. I have people that love me, and I know how genuine their love is, and a lot of people don't have that, and I've learned that through being through this process. There's a lot of people that don't have that family support, that don't have the people that look after them and care for them the way my family does, and I'm forever grateful for it, and we're not going to stop fighting. Like I said earlier, this isn't how this story ends, and however long it takes, whatever the process that we have to go through to get me back home, we're going to do that, and we're going to make it happen. And it's as simple as that.
Because you all are still appealing. Like, that's still the fact. You're still moving forward with everything you need to do there.
Yes, sir.
People will say, if you didn't kill your parents, then who did? Do you have an idea who might have?
I feel that answer probably lied within those death threats that my father was receiving. And whatever was going on, the answer was probably behind that door, but the DA shut it. To this day, I don't understand how they did that. Like I was saying earlier, how are you, when we found out and we went before the judge and she said they had to come off of their messages and things like that, how are you guys messaging back and forth about hiding this? Like, you didn't want this to come out. You didn't tell us till much later. So it's like, you knew something was there, but you chose to ignore it, essentially. You chose to not tell the public. You chose to not bring this before a jury. And they fought before every single trial. That was something that came up about how they did not want that to come in because they felt it wasn't relevant. I don't understand to this day how it's not relevant that my father was receiving death threats. Why can't a jury hear that? Why was no jury allowed to sit there and listen to those facts? And why was it never investigated? I just feel that shows even more. They made up their mind and they refused to change their mind. No matter what came before them, no matter what was presented. The things I mentioned earlier, I didn't even mention the burglary at the gym. Someone matching the exact description that I gave to the police, mask over the face, everything, matched the exact same description, breaks into my father's gym. He never had a break-in before, never had issues. But now there's a break-in afterwards. Walking around, searching for things. It's not like they broke in and like, hey, let's just go grab the cash register and run out of here. No, they're walking throughout the gym. They're looking for things. So again, why is that not relevant? Why is that not shown to a jury? There's multiple things that we feel was just kept from juries because they felt, hey, it's not relevant. But why? There's no answer for why it's not relevant.
How did you feel during the third trial when prosecutors brought in the mannequins, the props to create the bed, the props to create the stairs? Because that was also different from the first two trials.
I'll start with the stairs. Anyone that's been to my house, their description of the stairs and how you have to come down a certain ways to be able to see, it's just not accurate. You don't have to walk all the way down. From my third story, you probably could have walked down 2 or 3 steps and peeked your head and been able to see the door. It's not hard at all. But again, they have to make the narrative of, hey, no, you have to do this, and you got to walk he had to come all the way down. Because they wanted to make it seem like, hey, he had to walk all the way down and see this person, and that person saw him, so therefore he has to be lying. When that's not the case. You only had to walk a few steps down. So I didn't agree with the way they presented the stairs.
So you're saying in that case, if you are coming down the stairs of the home, there's a way for you to see the person you said who did this without them seeing you back?
If the motion gets granted, it's unclear when the hearing would be held, but it's kind of frustrating to know now that AJ probably would have another shot at being innocent and maybe being free. We really don't know. So guys, let me know what you think concerning this case, because it's very unfortunate for the whole family, because at the end of the day, the family is completely broken at this point. And if you haven't seen the full case video, I'll go ahead and leave it in the description box below, since this is a current update video. But there's always this back and forth when it comes to this case. It's almost like you don't really know what to believe. You don't know if he's innocent or you don't know if he's guilty, because there's just so many changes with this case. I do find it a bit disturbing that there's always a new trial or new evidence coming out. It almost makes me feel like there's things going on behind the scenes that just makes this case so complicated. Like, I don't know, like maybe someone doesn't want something to come out. I don't know, guys. But as of right now, 2024, AJ is guilty and he's still maintaining his innocence. So please pray for this family. And I ask God to just expose the truth. Let it be clear, because, you know, God is not a God of confusion. And if his parents were killed by his own hands or someone else, I do believe that they still deserve justice, and the truth needs to come out, especially when it comes to this family. So God, we're just asking you now to just come out with the truth, expose what's in the dark. I pray, Father, Lord God, that you just bring rest and peace for the rest of this family, Lord God, because I know that they're grieving. I know that they're going through it. Not only did they lose 2 amazing just people, a son and a daughter, but their children is now fatherless and motherless. And now, you know, the whole family is broken. It's not your desire to see broken homes, broken families. So Father, Lord God, just let the truth be clear. Let the truth be evident. If there's anything going on that's snaky behind the scenes that is not of you, I ask you, Father, Lord God, to expose the truth so that the rest of the family could just live in peace. Protect us all. Keep us safe this week. And thank you guys so much for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next video.
Stay woke. Baby's creeping. Don't you close